Today, we're looking at a pink ink by Levenger Pinkly. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. There's timestamps down below so that if you are only interested in certain parts, you can skip around, but if you've got the time, please check out the entire video. Also, you can follow me over on Instagram, and if you like fountain pen ink reviews, I would invite you to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Noodler's Nipponset with a music nib. I wrote with it for a day. I then used it to take the notes for the video. I always standardize some of my writing samples by using Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper, although I do use more papers, and some of those will be seen later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in bottle form because that's fairly the way you get Levenger inks. To keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. It has spots of shading, kind of hard to see with this being the tone of pink the way it is. Extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub. With no feather spread, halo sheen, still plenty of spots of shading throughout the writing, 4 seconds to dry. Medium is a hair lighter than the stub, with no feather than the extra fine. With no feather spread, halo sheen, still very nice spots of shading throughout. 5 seconds to dry. The scrubbies from left to right do show some good color variation, and we do get it in the writing. Tomoe River, no bleeding, minor Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 6 seconds to dry. Medium is a little bit lighter than the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 8 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we didn't get any. And Rhodia. No bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is a little bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, some minor spots of shading going on, minor darker spots, 4 seconds to dry. Medium is a little bit lighter than the stub, than the extra fine. With no feather spread, halo sheen, the shading here is more noticeable than it was here. 5 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both left to right do show some good color variation. We did get it in the writing. I agree with Vita that there's a lot to be learned by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And what we get to see here is that this is truly just a pink dye. It starts very light, pushes its way up, and is gathering at the top. Now the one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And largely, it looks the same, to the point being that if I did not mark the filter paper with the letter D, you probably wouldn't be able to tell which one was which in their chromatographies. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it might be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, there's a lot of blurriness that's coming in with this. However, I can still read it. So it's kind of a dealer choice. Can you live with that blurriness and be able to read it, or is that too distracting for you in a note-taking? For me, I would not use this in a note-taking situation if I wanted to go back and highlight. Water is reactivating and lifting all the darkest tones, but not all the lightest tones. But if you look at the very bottom edge of that water, you see that with only 30 seconds, it's got the beginnings of the white of the paper coming through, which is the reason that it only took water to get this out of my pen. Pen Flush does everything that water does and a bit faster. If, for some reason, water didn't get this out of your pen, Pen Flush definitely will. And definitely things you will not need, 1/3 bleach solution, which completely removes it from the paper. You're not going to need it. I test ink viscosity with a tilt test that I'll link somewhere. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Levenger's Pinkly has a viscosity of 1.85, making this a wet ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average all of those. Now for the inks I've tested, I've found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Levenger's Pinkly has an average dry time of 5 seconds, making this a very fast drying ink. Instead of finding inks that look like Levenger's Pinkly, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a nice black, and I chose Colorverse Black Hole. The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia and white lines paper. Here we're looking at the yellow Rhodia, not to look at performance, but more to look at some tone changes that we can go through for using yellow paper. It still comes through as very much a pink ink and not anything else, but what I do notice is that the tone is just enough different. Just enough that we don't really get this shading. This stands out quite a bit when you look at the scrubbies for both. The scrubbies on the white show some color variation, and on the yellow it shows as just a little bit darker, a hair darker, which eats up the shading that you would otherwise get. Here we have white lines paper. Now we get bleeding, let it in, with both the extra fine and the medium. Neither of these bled through and touched the page underneath, but the extra fine, much more clearly, you would not be able to use the back of the page. It made for a lot of ghosting. So there's quite a bit of ghosting that I'm getting here with the medium, but that's a dealer choice for you. You can live with it or not. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 1 second to dry. Medium is just a little bit lighter than the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 2 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation because there was none, and that is all that I have for writing samples. So what do I think of Levenger's Pinkly? This is a very hot pink. It is what I think of if I think of the color hot pink, but it doesn't burn your eyes on the page. It might if you have a whole page of it, but I think this is a great ink to be able to use along with some other colors on the page. What nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? That's dealer's choice. You can ink any pen up and you're really going to get the same tone all the time, which is great that it's that predictable. I put out a new ink review every single day so that if you're not already subscribed, I'm going to remind you, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for watching.